Is a transgendered person morally obligated to tell their potential sex partners beforehand that they are transgender? Why? Any relationship not built on trust is most likely to fail, so I would say yes. I feel like if you think it's a deal breaker, you should tell the person regardless of what it is. As a trans woman, it's a D-move if you don't disclose beforehand. Sexual preference is a thing, and yes, it's okay to have a preference of genitalia. End of story. If at any point you need to ask yourself, is it technically wrong? If yes, it's wrong. Edit. Thanks for the internet medals, strangers. Also, if I refuse to be with you because I found out you are transgendered, that does not make me transphobic. Absolutely. The fact that anyone would even consider not including that crucial piece of information about themselves is disingenuous. Yes. Sexual preferences are a very particular thing. One's gender doesn't matter for most life activities, and it makes sense that one shouldn't have to disclose anything to do with gender identity for most activities in life. But when it comes to sex, all people involved have a right to shut it down at any time if they feel uncomfortable about it. Not telling a potential partner that you are transgender greatly increases the chances that a potential partner will be uncomfortable. A transgender individual will be increasing their own chances of a bad situation if they're not upfront about it, not just their potential partners. All this being said, I do feel for the transgender individual who just wants to live a normal life and not have to disclose something about themselves that should be completely accepted by society, but this is one of the few cases where I do think it matters to a lot of people. If I was the non-trans person in the potential hookup, I don't think it would bother me. For me, you're into who you're into. It's not suddenly a deal breaker if I learn that the person I want has different anatomy than I expected, or had surgery to change their anatomy. But I do think there would be less potential for an uncomfortable situation if I knew ahead of time. Edit. Just to clarify, when I said I don't think it would bother me, for me, you're into who you're into. It's not suddenly a deal breaker if I learn that the person I want has different anatomy than I expected. I realize I'm in a very small minority. I think 99% of both men and women don't agree with that statement. But I've been in a relationship for 20 years, and I just think if my partner were to one day decide they wanted a penis, I could live with it because it's about the person for me, not their equipment. It could potentially be very dangerous for them if they didn't. Yes. Honesty is essential in a relationship. Yes, and especially in situations where the transgender person has not had any sex change operations. I feel like respecting the other person's sexuality and their preference of genitals is super important. I've never met a trans person who wasn't completely open about it from the beginning. Nothing to be ashamed of, no need to hide it while dating. Yes, it's best for both people involved, not only for moral honesty reasons, but also for safety. I don't know, sometimes threads like these are silly because it just ends up with people circle jerking over trashing this idea of a theoretical trans person tricking someone, with little regard for the actual situation being presented. I get the sense some people see threads like these and go, yes, another opportunity to be as tactless as possible while pretending to care about the topic. Why in God's name would you not? Edit. When I posted this, I was both being glib and thinking about partners that you were serious about, invested in. I can sympathize with the question of when, or even if, to bring it up. There can be real danger there, and it's absolutely a huge issue. But when I posted this, I was thinking about how to engage with a partner that you wanted some sort of an ongoing relationship with. Most of you are vastly overestimating the passing ability of the average transgender person. Yes. Transgenderism is still not normal, and most people do not like that kind of information sprung up on them at the last second. Call me old-fashioned, but I prefer my women to have a vagina. 100% yes. You're agreeing to be with someone, you should tell that person about you, and that's a big effing bombshell to drop on someone from your own mouth, let alone if they find out about it themselves. Yeah. Seeing as my prerogative is to stick my penis in a vagina, I'd be pretty upset to find out that they didn't have one. Yes, and in my opinion, if they don't, it should be considered rape. I assume that a trans person would only date someone who they feel comfortable being a trans person around and wouldn't date someone that they feel they would need to hide it from, so I fail to see how this question is really that relevant. I'd say yes, especially if their appearance suggests otherwise. EMTF, but you legit can't tell she wasn't born anatomically female until she's undressed. Not only is it a shock that most people just aren't ready for, it's potentially unsafe for the transgender person. You never know what kind of anger judgment issues this can bring up. They could get hurt. Yes, because I sleep with a girl, I expect her to be a girl. If she whips AD out, I'ma be angry. As a trans man myself, speaking from experience, anyone who I felt comfortable enough with and trusted enough to have sex with is someone who already knows I'm trans. Ignoring the fact that 75% of my friends are LGBTQ+ anyway, I would never feel comfortable hooking up with a stranger or someone I'd just met, therefore I'd never be in the situation where I have to disclose that fact to a sexual partner. I think a lot of people underestimate how important it is to us to feel safe. There are probably not many trans individuals who hook up with absolute strangers and put themselves in the risky situation of having found a partner who will hurt them if things go south. More than likely, anyone making it to the bedroom with us is either already aware, or has been ruled out as being a transphobe. I'm sure that's not always the case. There are exceptions to every rule, of course, but it's still a lot less likely to happen than you think. Also, the term is transgender, not transgendered. Yes. Don't expect me to not be shocked when you have a 10-inch black hairy cock instead of a vagina. I mean, come on. Where are you even gonna put that thing? XD edit. Do I come out like transphobic, or why do I keep getting downvotes? Answer: yes. I'm sorry I didn't mean it like that. I think it should definitely happen sometime before the pants come off. Surprise. I have a penis vagina. Could go badly, I think. Sort by controversial unless you want to hear the same answer repeated dozens of times. I read a lot of people saying I'm not transphobic, but I'll go a slightly different route. I have trans friends and colleagues, but I am torn as to how I would feel having intercourse with somebody post-op to match my gender preference. I think I do have some hang-ups regarding trans individuals. Maybe transphobic doesn't feel like the right word, but clearly I have some investment in feeling uneasy about something that doesn't really matter. After all, I don't discriminate among the vaginas of the women I've had sex with so long as they were clean and hygienic. They haven't had to be uniform in appearance. If a trans person has a serviceable and clean vagina or vagina facsimile, I don't understand why I should be concerned, but evidently some part of me is, as I feel that I would want to know. It feels analogous to me to not knowing some other elements of a person's background, and wondering if I'd really care about what religion they were born into, or what their particular politics are. I feel like I'd be lying if I said those were things I had to be aware of before sex, rather than things I'd want to know at the start of a relationship. And all of these people saying that trans people should divulge so as to keep from being harmed, Doesn't it kind of bother you that they have to do something expressly from the fear that we will effing kill them? I'm prepared to admit that I'm not a perfectly logical and consistent person, and my desire to know if there is a difference between their presenting and birth gender may not be strictly fair. I'm not going to go around trying to tell everybody I'm not transphobic, but when clearly something about it does bother me, however slight, I hope that this doesn't offend the trans people reading this. I don't want to diminish your humanity in any form or fashion. Yes, obviously. Yes, both in a relationship and in the case of a one-night stand. Your partners deserve to know who they are being intimate with. If that's a deal-breaker for the other person, then so be it. People get slammed for saying they wouldn't sleep with a trans person, but that's incredibly unfair. You are a person too, and you are allowed to choose what you are attracted to. This isn't to say people should be allowed to discriminate against trans people when it comes to things like jobs or housing, but each individual person gets to decide what they're comfortable with in their partner's. It is not transphobic to say you aren't attracted to trans people or that you wouldn't want to have sex with someone who has transitioned. Yes, because they and everyone knows it's a massive deal breaker for a lot, if not most people, and when it comes to sex, everyone should be able to say no, no matter the reason. Yes, it's fraud, it's misleading. And in some cases it may be assault. If one had HIV and knowingly put another at risk without their consent, it could be seen as attempted murder. So leading someone into a relationship or sexual encounter without consent and knowledge of sexual orientation, in my opinion, is a form of attempted date rape. You don't have to agree. It's just my opinion. Yes, whether I'm cool with it or not is not up to you to find out, as in taking your pants off. Not only that, but you just shown me that I cannot trust you. I'm pretty open-minded, so generally speaking, if something like that were to arise, we could discuss it like adults and come to a conclusion where we can be just friends, or part our separate ways. Edit, the US were figurative, not aimed at OP. Yes, cause a lot of people would prefer if they were told that instead of getting dat pussy they'll be getting MF hairy ass man D. Yes, that's common decency. Can also impact stuff like wanting bio kids, etc. Yes, even if it's just a kiss. The fact a person would want to keep it from them, something so significant, answers the question without any need to analyze it further. Yes, they are morally obligated. Of course, consent under false pretenses really isn't consent at all. Maybe the partner isn't into that, and even if he is cool, the fact that you kept it a secret may cause problems on its own. Transgender, and yes, not only because people have genital preferences, but also because relationships should be built on trust, and that's a big thing to lie about. If the trans person is post-lower surgery, yes. Really, it's down to the person's morals, but I think yes, being trans is a big thing to hide from a sexual partner, and it can get awkward if that information is hidden. Yes, tricking someone into sex under false pretenses is rape. I'd say yes. I think being trans is an important aspect of someone's life. I would expect it to come up before sex in a dating situation, even in a casual encounter. Letting them know what junk they'll be working with gives them a chance to prepare, both in terms of safety and technique. If you've only ever given blowjobs, you're going to want to think about how cunnilingus works, and get a dental dam, before hooking up with a trans man. Also, there are some people who may have fears and anxieties regarding one set of genitals because of sexual assault. It's deeply unkind to spring that on them unawares. Yes, for SS sake. Effing hell. Call me old-fashioned, but I prefer my women with a vagina. Yes, because it's a deal breaker for the vast majority of people. Lying about that, including a lie by omission, is akin to lying about being HIV+ or a close blood relation. It's rape by deception and utterly despicable. I'm surprised no one has touched on the reproductive aspect of this issue. For a lot of people, especially younger, they may want to reproduce naturally. As far as we've come, we still can't biologically make a man a woman or a woman a man. Of course. Yes. Common sense is why. At this period in time, probably before you go on a date. Number 1, it saves both people time. Number 2, it's pretty dangerous for trans people out there. Lots of trans people getting murdered on dates because the guy they went out on a date with was unhappy with that information, and some laws protect the murderer. Oh hell yeah, when you see a girl you assume she is a girl since birth, and not directly thinking she was a man until proof. To not make a situation awkward, it is better to tell that person about your history before the intercourse. Yes. Doing otherwise would be lying. If you're not naturally female, your partner has a right to know. Is someone obligated to not be intentionally deceptive to the person whose relationship with you is supposed to be built on trust and honest communication, not to mention the potential of triggering PTSD, panic attacks, and trauma? Any person is morally obligated to be honest. Yes, you're obligated morally to not intentionally cause harm. Revealing that information too late can cause harm to the other individual involved. Yes, and if they decide not to pursue a relationship with that person, they should not be judged either. People's sexual and romantic preferences are entirely their own, and no one should be allowed to dictate, or attempt to manipulate that. I'm trans, and yes, absolutely. Now, it's okay if the trans person waits until the second or third date. After all, they need to keep themselves safe and may need to gauge how someone might react. So they may toss random questions into the conversation about LGBT or trans issues first to see what their date thinks, and then work up to the reveal. But it should be discussed very soon in the relationship and absolutely before sex. Yes. 'Cause it's respect. Everyone isn't gay. Yes, whether you like it or not, being transgender is a massive no-no for many cis people, even if they think the trans person is cis. It is fair to tell them up front. It doesn't really matter, because it isn't something you can realistically hide. Neovaginas do not look like vaginas, but barring that, I'd say yes, you should tell them. Some people have cultural or religious reservations about these things. Tricking them into committing what they see as a sin is akin to tricking a vegetarian into eating meat. Yep, that would hurt both people in the end. To use a crude simile, not telling someone about being transgendered would be like not telling a Muslim, Jew, or vegetarian that the food you provided contains ham. I have no moral issue with ham, but I know there are people that would feel like eating it would be against their morality to consume it. In that vein, withholding the information from people when I know it could be an issue, is against my morality. I am transgender and I disclose that to potential sexual partners the same way I would disclose my HIV status, and what I'm into not into, although I have to do it to be safe. People could get violent with me if they find out I'm transgender. People are going to be seeing my genitals. I'm going to tell them what to expect. Usually I have it on a dating profile already, so only people who aren't going to be weirded out about how I'm trans interact with me. It's all about respecting people's boundaries. Edit. As long as people aren't violent with me or straight up prejudiced, I don't really feel like anyone is a bad person for not wanting to date or have sex with me. Like if someone wanted biological kids, I couldn't help them with that really. So I can understand not wanting a romantic relationship. It's all about finding the people that you mesh the most well with. Genitals should not and don't always matter. In a consensual sexual encounter, all parties have the ability to revoke their consent at any time. So if your partner gets naked, and you see something you didn't expect and aren't attracted to, you're free to put a stop to things right then and there. That's perfectly valid. Warning your partner about any potential surprises is a good choice if you want to actually have sex with them and not get rejected. But I wouldn't say it's immoral to not warn them, just stupid. Yeah, you're dancing into rape territory when you don't disclose something that would likely make a person not want to have sex with you. 100% yes. Absolutely. How is this even a question? Within the trans community, we typically strongly advocate for it. Usually, the general rule is before any physical contact, some debate about whether hugging counts or not, but in general, it's advisable to reveal that information prior to any sexual contact. The reason is twofold. 1. It's a sign of respect to tell them before anything sexual happens, and 2. It's simply safer for us. You never know how the person will react, and if it's going to be a negative reaction, it would have a very high probability of becoming violent if any sexual contact has been made prior. Mind you, this is a very abridged answer. Lot of details and variables that could be brought up, but to sum it up, yes. Most of us believe we should tell the other person first. Yes, because not everyone wants to sleep with a transgender person. People have the right to be whoever they want and the right to refuse sleeping with anyone. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to hear more of the best posts.